Hi, welcome back to Christine's Home Affairs. It's not often that I get to do any dressmaking these days, and I wanted to make a skirt for one of the girls, so I'm going to take you along with me today as well. In this first video, I'm going to show you how to draft a pattern for a very simple skirt with a waistband, and it's got just a slight amount of gathering in it, and it's got a regular zip in the back. This is made out of finishing fabric. It's still flowy, but it's not too lightweight. It's actually got a really nice weight to it, or nice feel to it. Hang around, I'm going to show you how to draft a pattern for this skirt. It's a 6-score skirt or a 6-panel skirt. And in the next video, which I'll upload tomorrow, I will show you how to actually make this skirt. Hang around. Okay, now the skirt that we're doing is going to have a gathered, just a slightly gathered waist. So we're starting off with an 80 centimetre waist, and we need to add a wearing ease. So the ease for that is going to be another 2 centimetres. So 80 centimetre waist plus your 2 centimetres for ease will be 82 centimetres. I'll put the inches up on the screen for you as well. That is just the waist measurement as is with ease, but without any gathering. So we need to allow for the gathering on our pattern. So for the gathering, we're going to add 10% to this. So it's 82 centimetres plus 10% is roughly 90 centimetres. Because we're making a 6-score skirt and our pattern is going to be cut on the fold, we need to divide that measurement by 12. And that allows for the pattern being folded open 6 times. So 90 centimetres divided by 12 will become 7.5 centimetres. And this is the figure that we're going to start with to create our pattern. We're going to start by squaring up our paper. Now with dressmaking, I generally use centimetres rather than inches, so I will be working in centimetres, but I will put inches up on the screen as well. Okay, now we've determined that the pattern piece that we need to have is 7.5 centimetres. This is our centre front, and this will be cut on the fold of the fabric. Come out 7.5 centimetres. And just make a mark here, and we also want to come down 1 centimetre. Now this is going to form the curve of our waist. If you have a French curve or a ruler with the curve on it, or even just draw freehand, we're going to mark a line from here to that 1 centimetre line, and this is now the curve of our waist. We want to mark the length of our pattern, so we are taking the length from this section here, and we now need to work out what hem length we want to have. And I'm going to do a hem of 52 centimetres. Mark that just there, and then I'm going to draw a line straight across, and I use my square ruler to help keep my pattern square. So this is the length of the skirt. If I measure 7.5 centimetres here, what we've got is just a really long rectangle with our waist measurement, but no flare or fitting, nothing at all, and certainly no seam allowance. Starting off with our waist measurement and the curvature of our waist here, we need to add some flare to the bottom of our skirt. It's completely up to you how much flare you want to add, and I'm going to make the bottom of my skirt come out, say 24 centimetres. So 24 centimetres is just here, and then I'm going to draw a line straight up. Doesn't have to go all the way because it's only a reference point. So we've got our initial 7.5 centimetres here, but we're going to extend the bottom of our skirt out 24 centimetres, and we have 52 centimetres in length along the side here. What we can do now is draw another line from the top of our waist here to this corner. Now, as far as the skirt pattern goes, it doesn't look right at all, does it? If we keep the pattern exactly as it is now, when you stitch the seams together, you're going to have little tiny triangles sticking out at the bottom on all the sections where the seams are connected. It's not what we want. Along here, we've got 52 centimetres, and along this side, we need to have 52 centimetres as well. We want this skirt to be even all the way around. So measure your 52 centimetres just there, and that's how much we need to take off the corner of the skirt. Starting from around here, which is our waist measurement, we're going to start a curve. So we'll go straight along here, and then we'll start curving the pattern. You only need a slight curve. You can draw this freehand, or if you've got a ruler, use that. And there is the curve at the bottom of the skirt. And this will ensure that the center of our skirt will be 52 centimeters and all the seams along the sides will all be 52 centimeters as well. So our skirt should sit nice and straight all the way around. Before we can cut this out, we need to add seam allowance. I'm going to have a 1 centimeter seam allowance on this. Now, seam allowance is, again, personal choice. A standard measurement is 1 centimeter or 3/8 of an inch. So you mark your seam allowance in, and you'll also mark your hem allowance as well. I'm just going to make it a 1 centimeter hem allowance. And I've marked the wrong allowance just here, so we just want a 1 centimeter allowance. Connect those lines. We don't need a seam allowance along this folded edge here because that is a fold, but we do want a seam allowance along the waist as well because we are putting a waistband on. Okay, now we can go and cut the pattern out. When you're cutting out patterns and fabric as well, if you're making marks on your fabric or on your paper, keep in mind that the edge of your ruler is the actual size of the pattern that you want. But as soon as you go and use a marker or a pen, you're going to have the width or the thickness of that line that you've drawn. When you're cutting out your patterns, cut out on the inside of the drawn line, not on the outside, because you're going to add 2 or 3 millimeters to each piece of your skirt as you go. So we're going to cut this out with our hem allowance and our seam allowance. And there we have our finished pattern piece. All right, we don't need much paper for the waist pattern. For our waistband, we're going to be cutting the fabric on the fold, and we only need a half measurement for our waist. Our waist measurement was 80 centimeters plus the 2 centimeters for ease, which was an 82 centimeter waist. We can halve that, so we're going to draft a pattern that's 41 centimeters. Now we need to add our seam allowance onto that, and because this is one long piece, it's going to go around the entire waist. We only have one seam matching up on the end. So we need to add 2 centimeters to that. And the reason for that is because we're going to put a zip in. So whenever you're putting a zipper in, you want to allow a 2 centimeter seam allowance rather than just a 1 centimeter. So our pattern needs to be 43 centimeters long or 17 inches. So I'm going to square up my pattern again. Then we want to measure 43 centimeters, which is just there. So that's a finished width of my pattern, which is on the fold here. The depth of our waistband is going to be 8 centimeters. The waistband is actually going to be folded. So we've got 8 centimeters there. I can come down and just draw a straight line in. And then we want to just close this up. And this is the finished pattern for our waist. And this has already got the seam allowance built into it. The internal line will actually be the finished size of my waistband. And of course, this is going to be folded as well. The outside lines are including seam allowance. So we've got seam allowance here, here, and here. On the fold, we don't need it because we're folding the fabric. We can cut this pattern out now. Okay, here we have our 2 pattern pieces for our skirt. Now, our skirt is a 6 gore skirt. If you want to lay out individual pattern pieces, you can go and cut this out 6 times. But to save paper and save your pattern and drawing more out, you can just reuse this piece over and over again. And I'll show you how to do that when we put the skirt together. This is our waistband and this is on the fold, so this will actually be twice the length. So we want to mark in some details. We want to cut one on the fold and we want fabric times 1 and stabilizer. So you can use a waistband tape or interfacing, whatever it is you generally use for dressmaking. And then you want to put in your sizing. So this is for an 80 centimeter waist plus 2 centimeter ease. And we have our seam allowance all the way around. and we know that this is the fold of the fabric. We don't need to put a grain line on here because the fold of the fabric is always on the grain line. This skirt piece is the same. We have a fold along here, so when we cut this piece of fabric out, we're going to have that opened out like that. That's the size of the fabric when it's finished. So we don't need a grain line because we've got the fold which will be on the grain. We want to cut 6 in fabric. This is for an 80 centimetre waist with 2 centimetre ease. And the seam allowance is already built into the pattern. And that's all you need to do to draft the pattern for a simple gathered skirt. And in the next video, I'm going to show you how to actually construct that skirt. So I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I shall catch you next time where we sew up this skirt.